Hello and welcome. It is episode number 35, the Hilarious Humanitarians Podcast. I am Frances Echeverria, licensed marriage and family therapist. I've got some special guests joining me today. You hear their little one in the background, which is going to be a fun part of the show, but that's what this is about, providing mental health for those on a budget, meaning we are free. So, as you are tuning in, thank you, and hopefully you've checked out the rest of our library. You can find us on all of the major podcast distributors, and while you're there, please subscribe and rate because that helps keep us on the top of that iTunes list. So, before we get started, really quick, the Hilarious Humanitarians Podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice, is not a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, mental health professional, or other qualified health provider with any questions you have regarding a medical condition. So, let's jump right in with who is joining me today. Let's start with the star of the show, the little one.
Can say hi, Mama?
Say hi.
Say
Hi. We're waving. Who is this beautiful little one sitting with me?
Olivia Simmons.
Olivia Simmons is joined by her two therapist parents who are joining me today. Deanna is out, and we're here to talk about mental health in a bunch of different capacities today as we get started. So, Johnny, your credentials and background, I mean, we know each other from work, but...
Yeah, we know each other from work, but my background is in marriage and family therapy as well as in, I'm a professional clinical counselor.
All right, and you are married to Amber, who is also a therapist. Were you guys on the same track for education when you met, or did you both decide on this?
Well, actually, when we met, we both actually majored in psychology. Law. Right, okay. Yeah. She wanted to do law, I wanted to do pre-law, and neither one of those happened. We realized we were much better talkers than listeners. And, you know, the laws can be a little shifty sometimes. So Amber actually graduated with a degree in communication.
Yeah. So did I. Okay. From Fresno State. All right. There we go.
Right. And then I'm over here by myself, I guess, with the background in psychology. And then went on to achieve a degree in marriage and family therapy from good old Fresno State.
All right. Yes, we are some Fresno State Bulldogs here today. So we're here to talk about a few different things. And I thought actually one of our previous guests recommended you guys. She's like, listen, you need to get them in there. They are a dynamic couple that has an opportunity to give some insight on being a man, working in mental health and dealing with mental health. You also have both specific training in very different areas. We're going to talk about expressive art therapy, and then also being parents and therapists married to one another. And also, if we can touch on it at least just a bit, we want to get into minority issues related to mental health.
Yes.
So as we get started, I mean, I guess, why don't we start with the obvious thing that's at the top of my list, and that is that Deanna and I are two women, and we have had one male guest on to talk about sobriety, but we both work with a lot of male clients, but I feel like there is a lot of stigma that's wrapped up in men seeking help for mental health issues.
Yes. Yeah, and to be honest with you, that's very true. Being a man and being in mental health, not only do I see the stigma, but I've lived the stigma, right? Being a man and saying that you may need some help with some things, that you may not understand how you're feeling.
Okay, Johnny, let's paint a picture of what you look like too, because you are not a small you're not a small dude that's like, oh, this guy might need help getting the top shelf.
No, I'm 6'1", 300 plus pounds.
Okay,
and with a burly beard.
Okay,
so just to kind of fit the description of a therapist, I don't fit that description.
Okay, and cultural background.
I'm an African American male from South Central Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yeah, so
you're not talking about feelings.
Yeah, feelings and South Central don't really go hand in hand, but we want to change that stigma.
Okay.
We want to change that stigma most definitely.
So how did you get involved in working in mental health? Was it a personal experience? I mean, that was mine, getting better and then realizing, oh, I could help people.
You know what? High school for me was really big. I had a teacher who was actually the principal of my high school, alma mater now, and she graduated from UCLA.
Okay.
Degree in psychology, and I took a psychology course, and I said, wow. I've always been someone who's just loved people, and being therapists, you understand that we draw people to us.
Yeah, we do.
It's something about the aura.
Good,
right?
bad, or otherwise.
Good, bad, or otherwise.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm also a fisherman, and a lot of days of me being out fishing, I end up catching people and not catching fish. So from there on, I said, you know what? I can dig this. I not only love people, but I can help people. And mental health, you're talking about now things that you can't see, right?
Yeah.
You know, that it's just not
it's
like
magical.
Exactly, right? And I looked around and I said, wait a minute, hold on. I don't really see too many people that look like me in mental health. And that pushed me, going into psychology. Once again, being an African-American male, I look around in my classes and I'd see me.
Right.
I go to trainings now, even as an associate marriage and family therapist. I see me. That was really big for me because I wanted to help my community. I want to help my community, but it all comes with some relativity, right?
Right.
If I don't see anyone who looks like me, then I may not feel comfortable to go in and even talk to someone, right?
Right.
I mean, we need some sort of connection. And sometimes that connection is being male. Sometimes that connection is being African American, right? Sometimes that connection is being a human, right? So I think that it really is on different levels, but the thing at the end of the day is us being able to help others, which feeds our own souls, right?
It really, I think that's why I love being in mental health, is that if people talk about chasing a high, when addicts talk about chasing a high, I can pinpoint that high for me. And it's not in an unhealthy way of like fixing people, but it's giving people the tools to recognize they can fix themselves.
Yes.
And that magical moment where you just see it click.
The aha moment.
Yeah, and it, just talking about it gives me a rush. And that's why I know some people go into supervision or, get into a management type position and don't do direct client to, client services, but I don't ever want to get out of that.
Yeah, I mean, once again, it's that person-to-person connection, right? And when we talk about chasing that high of mental health, when you see that aha moment, when you can tell that you're breaking down barriers and you help someone once again, it's taboo when we talk about mental health. Right. And you see someone be able to just start to break down the situation that they're in and really start to rebuild themselves. It's powerful. We change lives, right? I mean, I don't know how we don't have more Nobel Peace Prize, therapists, but we definitely help in changing lives, and it helps change our lives because we're able to see that growth. As you can hear the future therapist.
I know. You know what's funny about this? My kids are gone camping with their dad for the weekend. Typically they're here and I'm like low key threatening them to be quiet. But here's what I love about, and you and I work in the same psychiatrist office. When our kids go with us to work, whether it's doing something after hours like recording a podcast, or my kids go with me during summer to the radio station, I think it's important because they see a side of their parents that's like, oh, that's what my parents are doing when they can't be with me all the time.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know, I think it's awesome. I think all of this mental health stuff is soaking into her little spongy brain, and she's, seeing dad passionate about something, mom passionate about something. I think it's absolutely great. So I ain't making any apologies for the cute little girl in the background. That's for sure today.
Not at all. She has a lot to key in on.
She got a lot to say.
It takes me back to a quote that all superheroes don't wear capes. Right, so being able to be parents and being able to go out and help others while we're helping our children learn these things, right? It's phenomenal because to be able to watch your child have a conversation and say, "Whoa, how did you understand that? Where did you get that knowledge from?" And then you remember, wait a minute, you've instilled these values into your children. Right, without even noticing it, really, just having these adult conversations about things. So back to your experience with mental health. I think the way that I want to jump into this is just as a woman, what do I need to know about approaching mental health issues with a man, whether that's a partner, a dad, a brother, what's... Well, emotions are hard to talk about with men sometimes. They are. And for men, it's that being comfortable with understanding that you won't be judged. Okay. Right? From being a child, right? Men are taught, don't cry. You get up, you dust yourself off, and you pick yourself up. Act like a man. Act like a man, right? And men don't share feelings. Right. But we have feelings. They're under there. They're under there, right? And they seep out, and we see them seep out, right? But I think that coming from a male perspective, if I could shed some light on what it is that would help, or what may be able to help with talking to men, is being yourself, in all honesty. And what I mean by that is, I'm a laid-back person. And I think that sometimes we can try so hard to connect that we disconnect.
Okay.
Right? It's in someone seeing that this is truly who you are, and it's not saying that you have to be a laid back person, but it's saying that you're genuine, right?
Okay, authentic.
Authentic, yeah. Exactly. And then after you have established the authenticity, then it's going into whether it be diagnosis, whether it be talking about like treatment, right? Going into it, I guess with a different angle. And I'm trying to put a word or a phrase to the angle, but it truly is just...
It's just something.
It's something, right? And it's amazing. That was a really good question, because being a man, I guess I just kind of go into it, and I'm just used to doing that, right? But and trying to look at it from the outside perspective, I truly think that it comes down to that connection that you build, just like it would be with anyone else. But when you're talking to the opposite sex, right, it's them breaking down barriers. It's me feeling safe being sensitive around you. Right. What happens if you see me shed a tear? Not you. Now, you may say that you don't look at me any different, but do I believe that you look at me different? Right? And he may be asking that question, right? Calling someone on it. I've called several people on it. Do you think that I look at you different now that you've cried in here? And whoa. The faces people can make, right? Whoa. You knew what I was thinking. Right? And then once you've established that we're all people and we all truly do have feelings and emotions, and it's wonderful to express those, then you start to see people open up. Right? And I have men come in, women come in, children come in, and you meet someone where they are. Right? So it's using all the things that we've not only learned through our school, right, going to school, but it's also this using the things that we've learned in life. Right? Now, I wish that there was some sort of magic potion, but it's truly being you, being open, being free enough to say it's okay. Right? Being free enough to say, you know what? What's that like? Asking that question.
I think that's the big thing is if you don't know what it's like, then ask.
Ask the question. The worst thing you can do is start to dig in the box and just throw things out.
Right, and just assume.
Yes, because, there's a saying with assumptions, right? When you assume, right?
Yeah, you make an ass out of you and me.
No, come on. See? So
we cuss on this podcast sometimes.
Okay, right? So then we all have that mutual understanding, right?
Yeah.
Ask the questions, right? And now, essentially, as we ask the questions, things may be a little awkward, right? Because we're filling each other out, right?
Right.
But what happens is we're building a relationship. So it's just like when you're building a relationship with anybody you meet, right? Essentially, the first time you meet them and you talk to them, things may be a little different because you don't have that mutual understanding.
Right. You got to find the groundwork.
You got to find your groove, right?
Right.
As you find your groove with each other, then you start to understand that, wait a minute, you know what? We're much more alike than different. And then the relationship happens.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And that's where the magic happens.
Oh, that's where the magic happens. All right. Yeah.
And I think we're talking about this from a clinical perspective, but it also goes into a larger just relationship type perspective. I've found that in working with men, humor tends to work well. I think sometimes I face a barrier in that I'm younger. Now, I'm going to be totally honest in that, and I've had this conversation with my boss, our boss. I think that sometimes men come back because I'm a 35-year-old girl, woman, and they're like, yeah, I get an hour with this woman. I'm not, and that, look, the thing is, it is what it is. They're not disrespectful or whatever, but if that gets them to come back and then feel safe enough to talk, then that's fine. But I know there's got to be times like when I'm working with a man in his 60s who's a successful business person, he's looking at me going, what do you know about me?
Well, to be honest with you, and to kind of backtrack a little bit, that might be why they came initially, but there's a reason they stay.
They stay, yeah.
Right? And that's the big thing, is why do they stay? Right? Initially, we may say, oh, this may be fun. Let me hold on. Let me see what she can tell me about myself. And then you say, whoa, look at what she just told me about myself. How did you know I was thinking that? Yeah. Wow, you spoke things that I only thought. Right? And it's when you hear things out loud that they become real. Yeah,
I think for me, one of my, so if we go back a little bit in my career, I did not want to work with men. I did not want to work with men. For whatever reason, I don't know, there wasn't like a specific one, but also in radio, I've spent all these years talking to men ages 18 to 34. That's been my audience. So, damn it, guess what? When I worked at the rehab, you and I worked at the same inpatient female one, but later I went and got a job at another outpatient rehab, and it was all male. And it was the universe going, Francis, you don't want this? Here you go. And now I would say 90% of my caseload is male. I guess it's worked out that talking to them on the radio has worked about talking with them in the therapist office.
Yeah.
So I want to include your wife a little bit.
Yes,
on this one. Amber, your background, you were Fresno State, but what's your kind of work capacity now?
I am a marriage and family therapist. I work in residential care, but
like group home care?
Yes.
Okay.
With teens who are on probation or are part of social work.
Okay, got it. So they're in the system for one reason or another.
Right.
That is a hard and literally captive audience.
Yes, and residential care is usually their last stop or holding place.
Right, because they can't, the way the system works is that they can't maintain regular placement in a foster home.
Correct. Or their parents deem that they can't take control of their out of control. I put it in quotes.
Because sometimes it's,
behavior.
Yeah. Okay. So how have you found, I mean, I gather from that you work in a male-based?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
A lot of them. I have 1 girl's house and 3 guys' house.
Okay, so that should tell you a little bit, too, about the demographics of the kids in the system as well.
Yes.
So what have you had, I mean, you're a young mom and, educated and in this field. What barriers have come up for you in trying to connect specifically? I mean, if we talk about like teen boys.
Usually, like when you were talking about the guy-girl dynamic, it's usually that it's like they're coming because they think I'm young, I might be cute to them, and so they come into therapy, and so it's getting past that and actually getting them to want to look at their feelings. Usually,
right.
They've experienced so much trauma in their life that they think shoving it down, bottling it up, throwing it to the back of their mind, covering it up with substances or music or whatever else is going to help them get through it. And so that's usually the barrier, just helping them to first identify emotions.
Right, to even use feeling words.
Right. And then figure out which emotions they're feeling at any given time.
Amber, I want to ask a question. Have you ever had one of those moments where you're like, I should know better? Like, as a therapist, you see a man's behavior and you say or think something, and then afterwards you go, I should know better. Because I have a specific thing in mind, and I'm going to call myself out on it, but can you think of anything? Like, maybe it's even with Johnny as your husband.
I'm actually thinking of a moment with one of my guys recently. He was really upset because he got word from his sister that someone was talking trash about him in the streets, and it was someone he was close with. If you could think of having nothing and giving your really good friend the clothes off of your back. Okay, that kind of friend. And he was really upset, and I was like, come on, we gotta get this anger out, dude. Like, I can see it all in your body and everything. And he's just like cussing and going. I was like, yeah, you're right, shit. I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have cussed right now. feeding into the anger, because they do tell us as therapists to match your client's emotions, right? Except for the anger. Right. You're usually trying to let them get it out, right? And I wanted him to be comfortable enough to get it out, so I was trying to match him, like you're talking about. But I might have taken it a little bit. You're feeling it. I was able to clean it up. Okay, that's the important part, and that's a learning moment too. I think even not just as therapists, but as people, partners, parents, where you mess up and you go, okay, so here's what I should have done there. Right. I remember specifically an interaction I had. It was outside of a restaurant, and I was on a date with somebody, and I had come out to the car from the restaurant. He was picking me up, and I noticed that some like drunk guy's talking to him on his side of the car, and I'm getting in, I'm like, what's going on? This is weird. Well, apparently drunk guy was trying to, hi. I'm waving, I talk with my hands and I'm waving, and Olivia's like, hi, to me too. As I'm just explaining the drunk guy. So anyway, I get in the car and he's trying to diffuse the situation, all right? So the guy I'm with is trying to diffuse the situation. The guy that's outside the car, the drunk, is asking like, oh, just let me use your phone, or I'll give me a ride home. And he's like, I don't know who you are. Like, this is whatever. Right. So anyway, drunk guy then starts talking over my date in the driver's seat, talking smack to me. Oh, you see how your man is? First of all, he wasn't my man. Secondly, but he was trying to rile me up to then engage
those two in a fight. And I had this weird mix of emotions of, why don't you tell him to shut up and respect me?
Right.
But then also, like, I don't want to see a fight break out. So he diffuses it, we leave, and I was thinking, wow, Francis, you're supposed to have your act together. And here you are wanting to see him defend your honor. Like, the best thing was to diffuse the situation and leave.
Right.
So it was interesting in that. And then when I stepped away from it even further, I thought about, oh my gosh, if I was a hot-headed woman, this could have gone real bad, real fast.
Oh yeah.
So I guess just saying, even with all of the training, like, sometimes we just have those moments where we're like, whoopsie.
I mean, we live in this society, so we still learn all the social things that everybody else learns, and still come from somewhere.
and I think that was just a real interesting moment too. And I had I've had a couple other ones where in the therapy room, I'm fine with a guy getting emotional, fine. But I've had points with partners in the past where if they start to get a little too emotional, I get a little uncomfortable. Like, I don't know. When I was younger, didn't know what to do with it. Because in our heads we have this, men are strong, man up. I refuse to use the phrase man up. Because, gosh, if you could think of, like, I can't think of one that's more toxic.
Yeah.
Well, because you have to think about it, from a male perspective. Your whole life you're taught to, once again, stuff your feelings down, all right? Don't talk about it, right? Man up.
Right.
And then we get these men in our offices, and we want them to what? Share their feelings.
Right. Talk to me. He doesn't talk to me about what's going on,
How am I supposed to talk to you when, I'm 30 years old, and for the last 20 plus years of my life, I've been hearing man up.
Right.
Men don't cry. You suck it up.
Right.
And then once the implosion happens and we try to pick the pieces up, we wonder why the implosion happened. Right? And once again, for us as being, and you're talking about, your personal feelings coming up, right? Wow, I want you to defend my honor, right? Think about it from a male perspective, right? And I guess I would call myself an alpha male, which is another term. With that, though, I'm one of those defend your honor kind of guys.
Right.
Right. I'm one of those,
right?
Like,
yeah.
And at the same time, I am a teddy bear.
I mean, true.
Right?
You can attest to that, right? Like, if I was, I always talk about if I had to put a team together for the end of the world, who would be on my team? Johnny would be on my team, because then he would talk about feelings. Yeah. And be like, let's just hug.
Yeah. Let's all get together and let's hug, right? So it's understanding that, you know what, at the same time, it doesn't matter where we come from, but it matters where we end up.
Right.
Right? Three of us are sitting here right now, all from three different areas, and yet still we're in the same room talking about a very important cause, right? And a very important thing, which is mental health, right? So the fact that our psyches have aligned, right? And
it's all brought us here,
It's brought us here. And so with different backgrounds, because we have to remember, mental health doesn't have a socioeconomic status. Mental health doesn't have a religious creed. No. Mental health doesn't have, a culture that it affects and a culture that it doesn't affect.
Right, it's everyone everywhere.
It's universal. So when we really see it as universal, or we treat it as such, then we can really start to not only diffuse some of the situations that not only some of our clients are in, but that we're in, but we can really start to open a pathway to mental health. Right? The name in itself.
Right.
Really having mental health. But you have to talk about it to have that. We have to open up these things. We have to really push those taboos to the side and say, no, it's okay to talk about it. Right? Being an African American male, once again, coming from South Central Los Angeles, Figure Ward, right?
Like, you don't get any more legit. I feel like I got street cred just having you in my house.
I mean, lowriders, drive-bys, everything, right? All the stuff you see in the videos, in the movies, right? To come from that and to have been involved in things you shouldn't be involved in, people you shouldn't be involved with, and then to look back and say, wow, look at where I am now. I didn't think I was going to see 21 years of age.
For real?
For real, right? I mean, I was with some bad fellas.
So you really thought, and I've heard this from a few men that I've worked with, where they just didn't think they were going to live past a certain age. That never even crossed my mind. Amber, did you ever have a point where you were like, I'm probably not going to live past 20?
Oh, absolutely. I grew up in East Oakland. So
Okay, so we get a little bit of background on you then. Okay.
It's a real phenomenon.
That's my privilege speaking, by the way, and I'm going to call that out because that never crossed my mind.
Well, and in the same way, I have to say it wasn't until I did grief counseling that I realized how foreign that was. So that my life expectancy to be only 21, I didn't know that other people didn't think that.
Yeah, that was your normal.
Right.
Okay.
And so when I started doing grief counseling when I was still in school, I was like, oh, whoa, I got to think about this. Like, why do I think that? Where does that come from? And what have I been learned or taught, rather?
Yeah. So real quick, while I've got your attention, because Olivia's helping Daddy check out things. So your background into getting into mental health. I mean, we've got the whole span of California here. I grew up right smack in the middle. Johnny from South Central Los Angeles, and you're from Oakland. What got you into mental health?
It was, honestly, I started out in residential care as a direct staff.
Oh, okay.
And so my kids...
Which is like entry-level stuff that's a job for people who have like high school diploma, that kind of thing?
Correct. Okay. Yeah. Now they're requiring a little bit more bachelor's degree or at least some college.
Right.
But they do like people that come out of the foster system and want to come back and give back.
Okay.
But I started there and my kids were... I'm a spoken word artist. So... my kids would always come to me with like these raps, these songs, these poems, and they would have all these messages about and glimpses of their life and what they've been through and the things they've experienced. And I was like, oh, and at the time I was just young. I was like 21, 22. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is tight, like keep doing that. Yeah, you're going to have skills. You're going to go far one day, kid. Like, and I was trying to help motivate them to use it as a coping skill. And then I went off to San Diego after graduating college, and then I was like, I don't really want to do this thing that I'm doing. I was an admissions counselor, and I was like, if I could do anything, I would want to do something with art.
Okay.
And so, expressive arts. And I honestly thought I coined the term myself. I was like, I'm going to just Google search this. And then I find out that there's like a million different platforms for expressive arts. But I chose a school in San Francisco, so I ended up going back home and staying with my family. But it was in that I just knew that there was some connection about art and helping people to tap into their feelings and really process them. And that's what I found in my program, and I love it.
So some of the research I was doing for this was talking about how traditional talk therapy doesn't seem to be something that men want as much. It talked about doing things that were tied to humor to kind of add some levity. And then also it talked about more active engagement. So has expressive art been something that's worked for you to connect?
Oh, yes. I mean, just working with kids aren't talk therapy kind of people. Right. Playing games to begin with, kind of break the ice. Gameplay is usually a great way to connect with people. Right. But then when we get into the more deeper feelings and as we build a relationship, sometimes there are just things, I don't know if you've ever had a moment where you're just like, there's no correct word for this feeling that I'm feeling. It's like several words that I need to string together. And it's in those moments where maybe language is a barrier, maybe something else is a barrier, where art can really be that communication tool. And for me, it's almost like how they say math is a universal language. Okay, that makes sense. I feel like art is that universal language. If you look at history and expressive arts, really the thought is that art has always been a part of human behavior. Right, it's what separates us in a lot of ways. Yes, and cavemen, cave paintings, if you think about storytelling, passing down history in all these different ways, we are really art people, and it wasn't until the industrialized area that we started separating things out, school. And then it became more recreational when really it's more of a fundamental part, I think, of humanity. Right. And really, if you think about coloring, you are really merging both sides of your brain. So this is the time when you're most heightened and able to piece things together, if you will. Right. So it's really awesome. So we have a moment because Johnny stepped out with Olivia. She was getting a little tired. But I have to have a moment to just, as a mom and as a therapist and all the things, to watch your husband interact with this itty bitty baby girl has got, it just makes my heart melt. And as his partner, you've got to tell me, like,
The words. I don't even have the words.
It is really awesome.
Oh, man, he's sneaking in. He's going to hear us talking about him now.
It really is awesome. He's an awesome father. He's an amazing husband. I give him a lot of crap, but he handles it. And I think it's really, we found a awesome balance for each other.
Right.
Where we can each take the lead in something. And I think that helps because we both have really strong personalities.
Right. Well, and two strong personalities can go either really well together or really bad.
And see, people don't know about the beginning of our relationship where it was really bad.
Is this something you want to share? I mean, I don't know. First, where did you guys meet? Because we got LA and Oakland.
Yes.
I thought those traditionally didn't like each other.
This is true. We met at Fresno State.
Okay.
We actually met, my roommate had met someone during like dog day when you first orientation. And she knew a person that Johnny went to school with. And then they invited them over to our dorm room.
Okay.
And that's how, and he told me his name was Keith.
See, Olivia's crying because you lied about your name.
She's like, your name's not Keith.
An alias isn't a lie.
And he thought my name was Sapphire. So this is how we met.
Although Keith and Sapphire would be a great couple.
That's a good couple, right?
Sapphire? Really? Both names?
That's what I said. That was weird. My name is Amber, so I guess he was kind of close. I don't know.
It's like a stone or a color or something.
It's a color, technically.
Yes.
I mean, one's like a brown yellow.
It's more like ruby red.
Yeah.
It sounded pretty good, though. Sounded pretty good.
I was nowhere near close with Keith.
So as we're listening to the podcast today, we have these special guests, two people in the mental health field who happen to be married, who happen to have very eclectic approaches to therapy, and happen to also be African Americans. And we have a whole lot to try and get. And parents. So to try and get into one podcast, but that's kind of what we've done. Deanna and I have done is create this podcast. It's more of a conversational type thing and things to think about. So one thing I want to know is it easier or harder to be married to a therapist? What does conflict look like?
You have to ask perspective.
Yeah.
In my perspective, I think it is way easier. I say that because we really don't argue too much.
Okay.
We can agree to disagree.
Okay.
We may have a discussion.
Okay.
Maybe a heated discussion.
Okay. That's real.
But
Okay.
at the end of the day, the respect factor is so high. I respect her so much as not only just my wife, but as a woman and as a person, as a strong human being, that I know that I am not one without her.
Right.
And I wouldn't disrespect that. Iron sharpens iron. Right?
Oh, I like that.
And she's definitely iron. She's my iron. And I appreciate her for that. I'm also a spiritual man. For me, just being able to look at where we are now, I know that it's not a coincidence, in my opinion. And with that, when I was a child, I thought as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. And so childish things for me may be going to sleep angry because you don't agree with me.
Okay.
A childish thing for me may be trying to use my alpha maleness,
Okay.
right, to really dominate a conversation. It's not that important at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, when I look over, I see my soulmate. I see someone that I couldn't live my life without. Is an argument that important?
Right.
You know, so I think it's truly thinking past the argument. It's being able to see past yourself.
Put your ego aside.
Put your ego aside.
Your education as
And
therapist
all that
aside.
stuff. All that stuff. I don't care how many letters you have behind your name. Right? And then at the same point, it's having a daughter as a male changed my life as well. Because she's looking at me. Mm-hmm. And she's seeing how daddy responds. So I am under the scope 24/7. And I appreciate that, though, because it keeps me sharp. Right? It shows me what I need to do and what I need to not do. So I think that, in my opinion, having someone who's in the same field of mental health is great. Because then after we have these conversations or these discussions, we talk about them. We break them down, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're theories, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then it's sharp as the iron again. So it really is being on top of what we're doing and being on top of where we're at. And that just comes with day at a time, moment at a time, and having our ears open to learn.
One thing I kind of wanted to touch on as we're wrapping up here that you mentioned about spirituality, and we've not done a podcast on that, and I think it would be really interesting to do, is I've been doing a lot of reading, right, on wholehearted living, as Brene Brown puts it, but also I've been doing some reading by Pema Chodron, I think is how you say her name, but she's a monk.
Oh.
But anyway, they talk about spirituality being so important to mental health, and spirituality doesn't necessarily mean religion. I've also read Abraham Tversky, who's a rabbi, but part of solid mental health and this kind of idea of wholehearted living is that to have some sort of spiritual connection.
Yes.
So whether that's a religious tie and you go to church in that community, or you're Buddhist, or you're, whatever, Islamic or Catholic, but to have that spiritual tie to something bigger is so important. And as we're kind of stumbling through life trying to figure it out.
Right.
I think that's what the existential thing is in therapy, when we start talking about like our purpose and this greater thing. But I also feel like along those same lines, like I honestly feel like I'm an energy feeler, and I think that's part of being a therapist.
Right.
You have to be able to. Some people will call it like reading body language, but I think it's just a keen sense that you have that's like a little bit more fine-tuned than maybe some other people. And I think that's part of spirituality too.
Yeah, I saw this really interesting. I don't know if you guys have seen, but Will Smith does these like little blurbs, these little motivational blurbs that are like, that kind of float around Facebook and whatnot. And he talks about how we have a flame, and if you have a flame, you will attract people. So you need to protect that flame. So are people feeding that flame, or are they, he so nicely said, peeing on it. But I keep that in my head. He used a different word, but I keep that in my head sometimes, because whether you're a therapist or just one of these people that tends to pick up on other people's emotions, whether that's working with men or having relationships with men, women, whatever, to keep in mind, like, are you fueling that flame? So as we're wrapping up today, I do want to ask you, because we do this on the podcast, we talk about self-care, because self-care, spirituality, both really important parts of this kind of idea of wholehearted living. So what do you guys do, both working in mental health, but trying to figure, I called you up and was like, can you do a podcast? You've got a little one. What does your self-care plan look like? You're like, I don't know.
Right, I'm a fisherman. Right?
Okay,
I mean,
fishing.
Wholeheartedly, I'm a fisherman. It's something about being in the outdoors that my family's been doing since I was a young one. So I am. It's funny because I remember I was talking to one of my clients about just coping strategies. I started to name out all of my coping strategies. He said, "You sound like an old white man." I fish, we go shooting, I go do all this outside stuff, outdoors, and
what are you kind of doing?
He's looking at me, and because once again, I'm a big burly black guy, and he's like, "You sound like an old white man." And I said, "Wow, I never thought about it that way." But you know what? Those are the things to me that and gardening. I'm a big gardener, right? So exactly, right. So. And when my hands are in the soil, right? Our daughter was able to help us plant the garden this year.
Oh, I love it!
Awesome, amazing, right? So that's now we have 3 generations of gardeners in the family, right? She's the 3rd generation of gardener, and it's those things that we build memories,
right?
And that's so important. Not only does that help us with coping in the moment, but it teaches us something. It really grounds me for myself. It's self-grounding. I know that my wife's going to tell you her coping strategies, but being out there with the family, being just together, right, enjoying conversation, doing what we're doing now, right. See, sometimes we don't think about what we do as a coping strategy, but it is. I think it's once again a perspective, though, because as we're helping someone else, we're sharpening our own iron.
Right.
We're questioning our own.
I love your iron thing.
It's real. That. It's real. It's raw. It's uncut. It's therapy. So many times, and I don't want to get away from the
No, this is good though. No, it's
so
good.
Many times when people think about therapy, they think about Freud and they think about a couch and someone laying down. And so many times as I'm providing therapy, it's not that at all. So many times when we think that we have this professionalism, it's not that at all. It's me showing you that I'm a human being. It's me building a relationship with you. Because so much about therapy starts at the relationship.
Yeah.
You can be a wonderful person in the classroom, but if you can't sit there and talk to a person, you're not going to be Work shit is
Yeah,
Let me be honest with you, right? So much of it is about relationship building and teaching others how to build relationships.
Right. We are the bridge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're the bridge. Look at that. So if you think about a bridge, right? Look down as we're crossing that bridge. There's running, rapid water. Those are the things that are in people's lives. We're helping them build the bridge to the other side.
Right.
Now, if one of these planks breaks, there's a potential for us to fall. But still, daily, we take that plunge.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're selfless at the same time. So we're building on each other. I've learned so much from my clients. And I say, damn, man, maybe you should.
I know, right?
You should be charging me.
Yeah, I've had that conversation.
Not because of maybe what they've said, but what they've shown.
Right, and their growth and their bravery.
Look, come on.
Yeah.
You're telling me that I can walk into somewhere and talk to a stranger about something that I've never talked to anyone about.
Right.
What? You know how brave that is? It's awesome. It's great. And we all deserve that. Right? So for us to be in this field that we're in isn't a mistake. I know today that we've kind of bounced a little bit.
That's what we do.
And that's awesome. Right?
Hopefully
we can come back.
I know. I'm already going. I've got all kinds of things to ask you.
You know, we can start to pinpoint some stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I think that today shows what we do. Because we've bounced around, but yet and still we've been on track.
Right. Well, that's what life is about.
Isn't that life? Isn't that life? So to be able to have the insight, though, to be able to say, isn't that life?
Yeah.
And you see that we're all on the same page. We're all shaking our heads like, yeah. Right? Because we live this life. Talk is cheap. Money buys land. That's an old saying my father used to say.
I like that one.
Right? And there's so much truth in that because people can talk all day. What are you doing?
Right. Like, don't tell me, show me.
Don't tell me, show me.
Walk it like I talk.
Walk it like I talk it. Right?
Come on, with all kinds of sound bites here. All kinds of them.
But it's true. It's real. Once again, it's raw and it's uncut.
Well, you know, I'm just saying, I know you like the fishing stuff, but you might also want to be a motivational speaker.
Right?
Because I was getting chills here, and I'm watching your wife going, that's my husband.
Yeah, come on.
Yep, you got it down.
Yeah, well, that's iron sharpening iron.
Right. And that's like such an ideal situation in terms of just watching this dynamic unfold in front of me. I love it.
She's humble. But
Right.
don't get it twisted. She's the lion. Right? She's the one with the bite. Right? My bark is loud. Her bite is strong. Right? But it's with that. It's finding that. It may not be in a significant other. It may be in a friend. It may be in a pet. It may be in yourself.
Right.
But it's finding that. It's really tapping into that.
Yeah, and then I think too, when you start creating these expectations for yourself and the people around you, just like we talked about earlier, drawing in energy, I call it leveling up.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's disappointing when people in that circle don't level up with you, but you can potentially find new ones or, strengthen other relationships.
Yeah.
So,
you know what? It's not disappointing. Sometimes, honestly, it's disappointing all the time.
yeah, you're right.
And we're talking about something. I know I keep going back and I'm probably going a little too long. When I said that I didn't think I was going to see 21, I have a saying that I have forever friends. And what I mean by that is I have friends that will forever be 16. I have friends that forever will be 15.
Right.
Because they didn't make it to where I am now. So with these days that I have breath in my body, these days that I'm able to really do something, to really walk it like I talk it, if I don't do that, what am I doing?
Right.
What am I doing? Am I being stagnant? If I water my plants with stagnant water, they don't grow. But let me throw some nitrogen in there. Right?
That's a gardening reference I don't get.
The gardeners get that, right?
All you gardeners are going to get it.
It's June right now, right? Throw some Epsom salt in there, right? Right? So as we're doing these,
Now it's tips, gardening tips with Johnny.
Right? Come on, right? Once again, the 6'1", 300+ pound burly black guy.
While, by the way, talking and I'm just transfixed on him talking, his baby girl has fallen absolutely asleep as he's rocking her on his knees. So, I mean, you're a multi-talented man.
Oh, man.
Keep this one.
Oh, he's not going anywhere.
Right. But it's in that, though. It's in that. So it's humbleness, right? Being humble and understanding that as we lift, as we climb, and as we really start to understand each other as human beings, we can do nothing but prosper.
Right. And then there's no shortage of it to go around either. That's what I love about it. You help other people, you work on yourself, and then just kind of it's a ripple effect, especially future generations. You know, your little girl's not going to understand, not going to need to understand what it's like to think I won't live past 21.
Right.
That feels so good.
Yeah, and that's pretty amazing.
So good. So good.
So he right now he's like, I'm sorry, talked about. No, it was good stuff. It was good stuff. It was good stuff. So
said it all.
Amber, as we're wrapping up today, what kind of self-care things do you do because I mean, I know I went through the program right after I had my first daughter, and then I had my son halfway through the program. So trying to do this work and be a new mom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was pretty challenging. I remember going back to work and being like, I'm a terrible mother. Because, you know, you go through all the shoulds like everybody does.
Yeah.
I should be doing this. But my self-care has had to change. And I think if I wanted to leave something with anybody, it would be that your self-care has to evolve. And as you grow, it's going to change and new interests. And so right now I'm super into hiking.
I know we were talking about this.
Yes. I love it. And really the reason why I like it is because I've always struggled with like being healthy with exercise.
Right.
And at first it was like exercise to have a thin body.
Right,
and
yeah.
now it's like I want to exercise to be healthy, which
Right.
is very different. But when I'm hiking, I love it because it's so metaphorical. And I was just telling Johnny this because we did a hike off of Millerton Lake this past Saturday. And I was like, I love it because you have to like climb these treacherous hills and like balance your way off of these rickety rocks sometimes, and you kind of hurt yourself a little bit sometimes, and then you know you wonder if you've gone too far because you remember you gotta go back.
Yeah.
But it's the journey, and that is what really refuels me again. It's like, oh, I made it through this journey again, like, and I'm still here and I'm stronger because of it. And so for me right now, my coping skills kind of align with my work because I need to remember that I can go through the journey too.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I think also just in general being able to appreciate your body after you've given birth and things have changed a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes. That is a whole another plight.
Yeah. And you know, that's the same for men. You know, I mean, our bodies change as well.
Right.
You know.
Oh,
no, that didn't work out too well. Okay,
didn't know about
that.
You know what?
I
would love to have a whole conversation about men and body image issues for real because I know women have plenty of men too.
Oh yeah.
So thank you guys very much. I would love to have you guys back on the show. I know we jumped around a little bit, but this was kind of just an introduction, if you will, to the super couple here, Johnny and Amber, and their little one Olivia. So thank you very much.
Now I have to ask, may I give a shout out?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, I have to shout out one, my wife.
Good. Okay.
You're awesome. All right, I had to be smart about
Thanks.
that.
Yeah.
And then second, Omega Sci-Fi Fraternity, Root to the Q's.
And he's a frat boy.
Yeah, you know, I'm just saying, Root to the Q's. They wouldn't let me live it down if I didn't shout them out. You know, those are some of the greatest men I've ever met in my life. So, yeah,
all right.
Just throwing that out there.
Hey, mama. Hey, daddy. I made it.
And my daughter fell asleep and didn't even see the end.
All
right. We ask you to please rate and subscribe to the podcast, and you can find us H Humanitarians Podcast on Instagram. You can find Deanna, Hilarious Humanitarian, on Instagram and her new website, hilarioushumanitarian.com. I am Frances Echeverria, but you can find me online, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat too, all under Shut Up Skippy, and a brand new website, shutupskippy.com, where I do have some guest bloggers that join me as well. So thank you very much, and we'll be back next week. Bye.